ABC7 presents Do You Hear Me? A conversation on race. I'm ABC7's Evelyn Holmes, joined by my colleague, the well-respected Will Jones. We also have a number of guests as well. Very youthful, energetic, um, futuristically thinking individuals who we have here. This is a conversation, okay? We wanted to be easy, comfortable, and authentic. That's what's really, really important. That it be one that people can feel as though they're being heard, but also maybe we'll learn something today about ourselves and other people. I've been asked to share a personal story just to get things started. I was thinking the other day when I was looking at my daughters, and I was thinking to myself, when is the first time I was called the N word? When I was 6 years old, going to school in Portland, Oregon. I remember the next time that it came up was when, it's going to sound very elitist, when I was in boarding school. I was in the stables, sounds very elitist. I was in the stables, saddling my horse. And there were a couple guys there, and they were always making fun jokes. They would make fried chicken jokes. They would make watermelon jokes. They would make, talk about Sambo. They would talk about Aunt Jemima, we actually really believe it or not. And I remember feeling so horrible. I called my mother. I was in Arizona. She was up here. I called my mother. I was actually 12 at the time. And I remember her comforting me, telling me that not everybody would appreciate me. And that's why it was important that I understand that I love me and know that my Blackness was a positive thing. Unfortunately, not everybody has someone to share that with them. That's what we're here kind of to talk about, and how these wonderful people that we have today are going to help us understand how we can help them move this moment that has become a movement forward with momentum. Will, would you like to add something before we actually introduce our guests and get going?
I think Black parents have to teach their kids about their Blackness at an early age because they want to do it before the world tells them about their Blackness. I just remember growing up hearing stories from my parents and trying to prepare me for the world that I was going to enter in. And I just remember saying, that's the past. My friends are all cool. I don't have these situations. And then as I got older, I started to realize that they were right. I remember one time I went into a store and I purchased something. I think I was in elementary school. My mom was waiting in the car. I came out without a receipt. And my mom got so upset with me because I did that. And I didn't understand at the time. I was like, I clearly paid for it. So what is the issue? But she was preparing me for a world in which that I could be accused of a crime. And she wanted me to have proof that I purchased an item. So still to this day, every time I go to a store and they say, oh, do you need a receipt? I think back to that moment. And oftentimes I say yes, just in case, I could be accused of something later that I have proof that I actually purchased the item. And I go into stores and I'm oftentimes followed around. And to avoid some situations, anytime I want to go into a fitting room, they allow people to take bags from other stores inside a fitting room. I always give it to the cashier or the associate. Here, I'm going to go try something on. Can you hold my bag? Just so I protect myself. And I think there is not a time ever in life that I'm not reminded of my Blackness and the responsibility that comes with it, and also the challenges.
And that's something to be said when we talk about restoration. We talk about the systemic racism, when we talk about how to deal with the trauma, the everyday trauma of being confronted with the stress of being Black, because you are reminded of it every day. And a lot of people may think that because we do what we do, that we are immune from that. Let me tell everybody, we're not. We're not.
I've been out on a story, Evelyn. In my first job in West Virginia, I was doing a story about a hometown hero. It's a segment that we did to celebrate people doing positive things in the community. And they were packing boxes for service members. And I was there as a one-man band, which means I was there alone shooting my own story. And I heard someone give directions over the phone, and I heard, you make a left at Inward Hill. Inward Hill. I'm the only Black person in the room, and I thought, that sounded like the N-word, but maybe it was something else. And then I just noticed the energy in the room changed, and no one else acknowledged it. And then hours later, once I got back to the station, started putting the story together, I'm getting calls saying, "Oh, you don't have to air this story. You don't have to do this story. I apologize. We're not racist." But there was an African American man who moved up on the hill, and that's how it got its name. But again, we're not racist. And I still did the story and celebrated their efforts, but
Of
I just
course.
didn't forget that moment.
Of course. Of course. And that's difficult. That's difficult. And so we're sharing some of our experiences, and I could, we could go on and on and on, every day. I had something happen to me just a couple weeks ago. But what I want to really do is I want to get our guest in here because see, they've got a different perspective than what we have. Let me introduce them. Gabrielle Winton from Build Inc. Very well studied, mass communications, also wants to someday write and publish books, which is fantastic. Rashawn Jordan Jr. lives in the West Pullman neighborhood, participates in the Free Spirit Media, but also is attending college over, I believe, at Columbia. Jari Taylor. Jari's 22, lives in the Auburn Gresham neighborhood, right? And is currently in the process of enlisting in the Air National Guard. Wants to be a photojournalist. So I can appreciate that. Love that. We also have Anthony Williams, right, Anthony? You there?
Yes, I'm
Anthony is from the Jeffrey Manor neighborhood, the southeast side of Chicago, currently going to Northern Western University. Is that correct?
Northwestern.
Okay, they
I
say
work
Northern
there.
Western. I'm like, what school is that? It's like, okay, we don't judge here. But anyway, so thank you for joining us today. I appreciate your perspective. You all are the future. Talk about how you see things right now, and what you think is the next step to move it forward for lasting change.
I'll go ahead and start. Definitely thank you all for having me on the panel. And I appreciate the two of you sharing your stories of just different ways that you've experienced racism. And it just caused me to think about how Black people bond, but we bond in the most traumatic ways because of our shared experiences. And it's not right that we can all think about the time where we had the talk about how to deal with police, or the time we were followed around in stores, and the times that we've seen things in our neighborhoods that we shouldn't have seen, and we've lost folks to gun violence. Everything that we've experienced is traumatic, but those traumatic experiences are not met with ways to cope with them. I've seen so much. I'm 21 years old, and I've seen so much in my lifetime already, but I've never received tools to cope with them. And I started to develop this numbness to it. I've been out to protest, I've been out on the front lines, and I've been taking photos, but my human reaction to it over time has just started to numb so much, because what I'm seeing out there on the streets is what I see when I look out my window every day. And I see people that are non-Black people that are in shock and in horror and in terror because their stores are being looted and the windows are busted out. So now they have boarded up windows that they're seeing, or some of their businesses may not return, which will become a vacant lot. And it's like, if you want to see some boarded up windows, I can take you down to my kitchen window. Or I can take you down a block and show you 10. If you want to see vacant lots, I can turn the camera around and show you vacant lots. So what we've dealt with for so long is so traumatic. And the only way that it's being recognized by the people in power is when they experience it directly. And it shouldn't be that way. You should not have to experience what we experience in order for you to believe us. Because what we've gone through is so traumatic that we don't want anyone else to have to experience this. So it's time for young people to be listened to, because right now we're so fresh because we're dealing with this at a young age. And we're at a point where we can talk about what we're dealing with and we can share with people right now, because as you start to go up higher and higher in life and get older, you have commitments that make you not want to speak out. You're like, you know what? I have this job that I really can't lose. or I have these kids at home and I can't be out here protesting on the front lines because I don't want to go to jail and not be back home for dinner. So young people, we have the same experiences. We have the most recent version of these experiences, and we're the folks that need to be talked to and listened to. And so long our experiences are based off, especially in this country, what is your level of college education? We may not have the actual college education experience if we're looking at one major and one minor, but we have the life experiences that allow us the authority to talk about what we're living through every day. So it's
Let
great
me
to have
ask,
people in these conversations.
let me ask you all this too. What do you really think should be driving this movement? And this is what I'm getting at. I know when I go out to these protests, I don't just see Black people. I see people, Latinx folks. I see white folks. I see Asians. I see Native Americans and people who are truly outraged about what's going on. How should these people who are not Black, how should they align themselves? And in particular, how should whites, what is their role in this?
So,
Anthony, hook it up.
so to answer your question is for other people that's not African American, they should look at it and say, okay, we should fight for equality. We all are the same and we should all be treated as such. People don't know what it feels like outside, besides African Americans, don't know what it feels like to leave your house, be pulled over, and that potentially be the end of your life. It's hard knowing that you have a red X on your back, and you didn't even do nothing.
Has
There's
that
no
happened to
reason.
you, Anthony?
Honestly, yes.
Tell me
I
about it.
have a few times. Been pulled over. I was standing in front of my house just talking to one of my childhood friends, and the police said, if I see you standing here again, we're going to arrest you. Me being 13 at the time, I didn't really think much of it besides let me move. But at the same time, I'm in front of my house. Where else can I go? So we were standing there and they end up going around the block and end up, okay, now come here. And as we went into the house, they end up coming into the house with us and end up asking my parents, can we search the house? Let's see if you have some illegal possessions. And we didn't.
Mm-hmm. I see what I'm getting from you now is pain.
It hurts. It hurts knowing that you can be killed, that people don't like you just for your skin color. This is not something we asked to be. And even when it comes to police brutality, all we asking for justice, for people to be held accountable. And we don't get that. We get pushback for asking for justice, to be treated as a human being.
I would be interested to talk about just the events of the last few weeks and what were your reactions to George Floyd? And I know it has impacted me. I just curious, how has it impacted everyone here?
Jari, or yeah, go ahead.
I didn't myself too, so.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Doesn't matter. Someone go.
To me, it was very shocking because, you know, on social media, this isn't the first or second or third time that something like this has happened. And seeing it again is like, okay, when is enough going to be enough? When is there going to be action done about the situation? Because apparently it keeps happening and happening over again. And I feel like, you know, it's treated as something careless. You know, that's a human life being taken away. But in the eyes of society of most, it's like, oh, that's just okay. That's fine. All right, what's next? But you know, when you're Black, you feel outraged because there's nothing happening. But you also feel like, okay, what if this were to happen to someone else of a different race or color? How would that feel? You know, how would people turn their attention to something like that? You know? And to piggyback off of your question, I feel like people of other races, you know, the support is really real. You know, I feel like there is a bunch of strength in numbers. When everyone comes together to fight against this injustice, I feel like something will really happen because right now we need to call attention. You know, we need everyone to see because at the same time, I feel like racism didn't stop. It's just being recorded now. So what we didn't see in the past generations is being shown now, and something needs to happen. So yeah.
Yes,
And with
thank
that
you for sharing.
said, are you surprised by the amount of attention that the George Floyd case has gotten across the country? I've been a reporter for about 15 years and seen a lot of police shootings, seen some protests. This one feels different. It seems like there is an awakening. And can you help me try to put that into perspective? Why now? And have you all been asking yourself those questions? Why now? Why is this being talked about now when this has been going on for decades, generations?
I look at that a lot, and I think that is mainly because of the pandemic that we're in. There are no distractions. You can't just turn off the news about a police shooting and then go watch some basketball or some other big event that can help us take our mind off of it. And when we go talk about allyship, they're really just two steps. Number one is listen, right, to understand what's happening. And then number two is act and engage. And even for myself, I'm starting to realize just how wide racism is and systemic issues and how far they reach, because we talk about a lot with police brutality, but it's not just that. You know, when I looked at what's happening with Aunt Jemima, and I realized, oh yeah, that was a slave figure that's been going on for so long, and for the company to say, yeah, we knew it was racist, but we tried to make it a little less racist. But now, since you guys are bugging us so much, we're going to take it away. And now we're starting to really hold people accountable and make them act. And with the George Floyd killing, what that showed me was just how bold people can be. And we've seen time and time again that police officers don't care if you record them. They don't care if you're going to report them. They don't care if people are out there yelling at them. And you're starting to push people to this point where you're going to see a lot of community uprisings. We just had one of those cases last night here in Chicago where police officers wanted to arrest a man, and the community jumped in and was like, no, you're not going to arrest him. And they started to attack the police officers. So we're looking at the people that are supposed to protect and serve us, and we're starting to wonder, who are they actually protecting and serving? And when I went out there on the front lines to the protest, the day that it was really starting to boil up, and I was looking at the bridge where the bulk of the action happened. I have photos of this where you have the protesters pushing at the police officer. So I was like right there in the middle, and I noticed that the group of like protesters were about 5 rows deep. And then I stood away from that, and I saw 7 times the amount of people just hanging out on the bridge, not doing anything bad. And I just looked at it, I was like, wait, what's happening here? Why are the police officers pushing against the people? Like, why can't we just say, stop, what are we doing? What's happening here? Like, why are we fighting each other? And we need people that are going to be able to step up and ask that question. And we expect it to be the police department, but we're starting to get to the point where if our city officials tell us we're not going to change the police department, we're not making changes, where Chicago is already seeing historic records of violence. So what's happening right now isn't working. So the conversation has to stop about, should we change police? This is not an option anymore. We have to change it. But now let's talk about how we're going to change it and stop having the discussion of what should we change when we see the historic levels of violence around the country with police brutality. But let's not forget that we're in the city of Chicago, where you can have a protest where we're protesting a police officer killing a black man, and then 6 other black people are shot at the same protest. That's a problem here in Chicago. We have a special circumstance.
That's interesting that you brought that up in terms of crime that's going on, and then you have police brutality. So when people hear about defund the police or dismantle police departments, specifically people here in Chicago, and we know the crime rate in our city, how do you balance that defund, dismantle the police department when, as you mentioned, I work the weekend shift, and at the end of every weekend, we get a report from police about how many people have been shot in the city, how many people have died from their injuries. So how do you balance that?
Good to go ahead and answer that. What's happening is people are not saying which 100% do away with police. What we're asking for is to expand the resources and the people that are responding to calls. We do not have to have an armed police officer respond to a man sleeping in his car because he's drunk. We don't have to have that, right? We don't have to have a police officer brutalizing someone in their own city, in their own block, and then you have 10 police officers standing around them protecting the brutality. So we look at it and we see, okay, we hear there's a shortage of police officers, but it's like those 10 officers that were standing right there while that man was being brutalized, they could have been doing something else. When we look at crime scenes and we see excess of police officers standing around, we figure, what else are they supposed to be doing? So we're asking for trained people and folks that are trained in de-escalation, and they do not have to be armed to respond to situations where they can be handled appropriately. Because if we know, okay, if someone has some type of mental health disorder and the person responding to that has the option to kill them, that's not something that we need to keep going. So we want the focus to shift. We're looking for money to shift into all of the ways that we can prevent this from happening in the first place, because people are reaching their boiling point. And we've been having these type of conversations for a long time, but we're just starting to see action being taken behind it. And when we talk about young people, one of our biggest tools is social media. But it's like you cannot criticize a young person for speaking out on social media, for being enraged, for going outside and holding up a sign and doing items to really make you hear them when they've been raising their hands for years, asking for attention that we've been constantly ignoring.
Mm-hmm. Jari, did you want to jump in?
I actually did, but I wanted to piggyback back on the topic of how we felt about what happened to George Floyd, and about that process. Actually, it took me a few weeks to watch the video of the George Floyd killing. I just honestly could not bring myself to see it when it first happened. And then when I finally, did get to watch it and process it, one of the first feelings that fulfilled my body was anger. I was completely angry. I was hurt and I was sad because it happened so brutally. It takes 2 seconds for you to pull a trigger to a gun, but you know how long it takes for you to put your knee on a man's neck and for him to slowly die a painful death. That's more brutal than you just pulling a trigger to a weapon. So I was angry, and I think our generation now, we're tired. We're tired of what we've seen. We're tired of what our parents seen, our grandparents have seen, our great-great-grandparents have seen. We're tired of hearing it. We're tired of dealing with it. We're tired of living it. Yep. These officers, they wear a blue shirt and a badge for 40 hours a week, but we're Black 24/7. That'll never change. I can't erase my Blackness, but you can go home and you can wash your shirt. Mm-hmm. What makes you more human than the rest of us? You see what I'm saying?
I do.
It was absolutely brutal. And I'm still, to this very day, I'm still angry about it. I just don't understand. I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear it.
You can hear that, can't you? And I was just going to throw this out there, is that part of what I went right there with you in watching it and knowing what I felt. I mean, I have never seen anybody murdered before.
Right.
And that was very traumatic for me. I'm talking to you all, but I'm seeing it in my head. And the one thing, I was talking to somebody about it, somebody white, and they said to me, I don't get the anger. That's what they didn't get. And the saying was, and I heard this from someone else, the saying is, what I said to them was, you're busy turning your head and I'm busy turning the other cheek. I can't turn anymore. There's nowhere to go. And I think that's where some of this anger is coming from. And the reason I ask about allies is because I want to understand how this movement moves forward, regardless of the pushback, by utilizing the allies that are available. What do you all want white people to do?
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You can go first.
Ladies first.
Well, I would feel like, please do not turn a blind eye. This is something you just can't close your eyes to. It's right here, it's right now, and it's happening. So we need all the support that we can. That's just how I feel personally.
I had someone express to me concerns about the narrative. They were talking about on social media, like the things that Julia Roberts is doing, and Kim, the Kardashians loaning their social media platform so that people of color can express themselves. Now, honestly, I've gotten very mixed reviews about that. I, for one, am not, I I'm not comfortable with that. But I'd like to know what you all think.
So first, I wanted to talk back on what you just previously said about allies and support. And honestly, we can't do it by ourselves. We've been fighting for years, hundreds of years for equality. Other people, other races have to step up and say, enough is enough. And that I work for Northwestern, and my director had a meeting, and Northwestern is a diverse university. And so she wanted the African Americans to actually speak and say our problems, what's on our mind, just get all of it off. And I think that's what we need. Honestly, we need people to actually listen to us. And people say racism. I hear some people say racism is a conversation that they can't have. They're not ready for. You're not ready for it because you believe that what's happening to us is either justified or you're just simply uncomfortable and you need to get comfortable with it.
Well, I mean, white privilege allows someone to be uncomfortable.
Right.
They allows them to look the other way, correct? I mean,
Right.
when I'm
Yes.
driving my car and I'm pulled over, I got pulled over by some officers who told me that I had pulled in front of an emergency vehicle that was literally a block away from where I was. And had I not had my license and my insurance and everything matched and my car is in working order, I may have had a problem, but I didn't. They were courteous. They were fine. But the point is that the anxiety that I felt with
Right.
just a basic traffic stop is real.
And that's
Something that people who are not Black don't have to worry about. And it's something that I'm sure your friends have told you, they don't even think about it. I'm saying, how do we get them to think about it? So it becomes a part of their process too.
That's interesting. You mentioned that, Evelyn. I don't have a car now, so I don't drive. But when I did, before I moved here to Chicago, I remember I got pulled over one time, and I told a family member or a friend, and they responded, "Thank God you survived." And that just like made me think, this is like where we are as a society, where you get pulled over for speeding or whatever the issue is, and someone sends you a response, "Thank God you survived."
Interesting. And you know, the other thing I wanted to mention to you guys, or actually ask you, because someone brought up, I kind of brought up Aunt Jemima, but then we were talking about the move, the marketing changes, right? With the syrup and the rice box, and the images of slavery, you know, Sambo and you know that kind of thing.
Mammy.
And right. What is the movement getting derailed by worrying about that kind of imagery versus getting substantive laws changed that will end systemic racism, meaning affordable housing, access to health care, stop banks from redlining, predatory lending, things along those lines, mass incarcerations?
Not necessarily. I believe that every white person has some type of power in their own life. And what I would challenge them to do is, you know, do a self-evaluation of your own life and see what ways can you help this cause and this issue. So if you are Quaker Oats and the only thing that you guys can do is take away the image of like a slave mascot, that's what you need to do. And lawmakers are the ones that are supposed to make the type of changes that they need to make. And Black people have been nice for a very, very long time. And I saw a quote and someone was like, you know, you guys are lucky that we're asking for equality and not revenge. And that's serious. If you are a hiring manager and you look at the demographics that you serve and you're serving Black people, but you don't have any Black people working in your corporate offices, that's a problem, right? We want people to hire more qualified Black people in positions. And so often you see I have a Black friend, not this random Black person that they can go and speak for the entire community. We have so many people that have degrees and no jobs. Start putting people in positions where they can speak for themselves. We don't have to have a white person that's like, okay, tell me how you feel and I can try to make the change. Give me your job as a Black person and I can make the change for myself, my own community. Start making yourself in positions where you can actually influence this change. But if everyone is so worried about themselves and their own communities and they don't start to evolve and allow us in, it's really hard for us to develop and grow. And we know that Chicago is a very segregated city. Everyone in my neighborhood looks like me, but why is it that the business owners don't look like me? Right? Like, where did the segregation stop when it came to the business owners? Why is it that the police officers in my community don't look like me? Let's start to get people that have a stake in the communities working in those communities. Because if you're a
let me ask you though, let me interrupt you. Let me ask you, what responsibility then do Black people have to support Black owned businesses? Right? Because some Black owned businesses would say, I can't get, you will run to a Starbucks before you go to the corner coffee shop on 47th Street.
And what I've seen now is, pulling back to my point about social media, I've seen people that started to put together lists of Black owned businesses and talking about where others can go. And there is a lack of information because not every one of these communities are online, on social media, looking at websites. Let's start doing more community bulletin boards and putting out that information. So there is a huge lack of information when what we're taught in school is not what's going on in our own neighborhoods and communities. So I don't think that Black people have this momentum and this idea where they don't want to support each other. We just may not know. We don't know.
And I'm not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is that maybe what happens is that if a business comes into very much like 63rd and Halsted Street, that complex, you got a Whole Foods there, right? Well, they hired Black. You have a Starbucks, they hired Black. You have a Chipotle, they hired Black. You also have the person that developed that shopping center is also a Black man. There were requirements that those things happen, that there be an investment in the community. So I hear what you're saying about people that are owning businesses in Black neighborhoods that are not Black. But see, if they're required to invest in the community, then that begins to change the dynamic, you see. And I'm asking you all about the process of that as a substantive move, in addition to some of those, what I call marketing things. Because remember, when we look back to Aunt Jemima and Sambo and the Uncle Bens, some people would say, maybe some people my age or older would say that at one point in time, if you look at your history, those were not the optimum images of Black people, but at the time that was a positive, it was a move. Those folks were the ones that stepped in, so to speak, to open the door so that we could walk through. Somebody else blazed the trail for me and Will, just like someone else is blazing the trail for you all, and we'll blaze the trail for who has come behind us. So I'm just asking kind of to play devil's advocate and to think about this process in totality.
Yeah, and you listed the problem right there. I got my associate's degree from Kennedy King College. So I did patronize that complex, but there's the problem right there. You have these white corporations and we give them the bare minimum, just hire Black people. Why do we have to have that Starbucks and Whole Foods there? Why can't we go get a Black-owned coffee store or grocery store and put them there?
Absolutely.
So the white corporation,
not a problem.
Black employees, but that money is still going up to white corporations. So let's stop with the bare minimum, just hire Black people. Give us a Black business. That's how
we should, what I'm saying is that start the Black business. We need substantive change to start the Black business.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need a loan, you can get a loan. If you need that support to do that, then you can get that. And it's not about you being aligned with a particular bank.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to the system. Jari, you wanted to add something? I thought you were looking like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to go back to the corporations about the Aunt Jemima, the syrup, the Band-Aid brand that was changing it to the different shades of Black, like dark skin, caramel, like, the brown skins, the different shades of Band-Aids. The gang system putting up the Black Lives Matter messages before you can hop on the Xbox or the PlayStation, or when you log into certain movie websites, they have, we stand with you. I would say about that is, it's nice. It's a very generous gesture. We appreciate it, but I hate that it took so long for these companies to say, we stand with you, or for them to portray the image that they stand with us. It shouldn't have gotten to this point at all. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't have gotten to the George Floyd killing, the riots, the protesting, the looting, the burning police, the police buildings down, all the killing. It shouldn't have gotten to that point for corporations and organizations to say, okay, we'll wake up, we stand with you today and from here on out. Like today will be the day that we'll stand with you. You know, I just don't think we shouldn't have gotten to that point.
And just think about this. Maybe a couple months ago, saying Black Lives Matter was controversial. And now all these corporations are using the hashtag.
Right.
Are you all even surprised by that? Just how far we've come just in terms of saying Black Lives Matter.
And I would ask, how real
why was
is
that
that?
even controversial? Yeah.
But how real is it? Is it in the moment because this is this is the shift, or is it going to really result in some substantive change? I mean, you're going to have people in positions, people of color in positions who can hire and who can fire and who can control the money and the narrative. Or are we just going to see a box get changed?
Right.
I believe it's for socialism. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jari, and then is that you? Who's that? Anthony. Okay, yes. So Anthony, let Jari sing, and then you go. Go ahead, Jari.
Right, but that the same question that you guys are asking about, is it just an image, or is something actually going to change? Like, do you actually stand with us? Do you see what's wrong? Do you feel what's wrong, or are you just saying Black Lives Matter because you just see everybody else saying Black Lives Matter? Like, that is something that I really want to know, because either you stand with me wholeheartedly or you don't.
How are we gonna know?
Exactly, that's what I want to know.
Anthony,
how will we know?
I believe it's all a marketing scheme, and the reason why I say that is because blacks been facing injustice for years, and now all of a sudden that they care that Black Lives Matter. Black lives always matter. And now you're seeing companies start taking away Aunt Jamila. She's been around, that bottle been around for years. You have the NFL saying, the NFL owner saying, let's get Colin Kaepernick a job. Let's see if a team will hire him. But he's been out the league since 2017. And our own president was fighting, gave pushback to him. And now all of a sudden, let's get him a job. Let's get him back in the NFL.
And another question would be, like in the Colin Kaepernick situation, you could say, how do you, if you truly believe there's an injustice been done to him, how do you make him whole? How do you make Black people whole?
We told them to open their purse. That's what we say. Open your purse and put some action behind what you're talking about. Like, online streaming company who I'm not going to mention, thank you for showing us a collection of Black films. Now, after we watch that, I want to see the list of everything that you've done and every change that you've made and every donation that you've made to actually support the cause. That's what we want to see. So we're really just looking for action. Every conversation we have, we want an action items. People are acting as if we haven't talked about it enough and they don't know what to do. You guys know what to do. So we need to start asking people to produce that receipt of what have you done? That's the question. What have you done? And not the marketing scheme. We don't like, they've mentioned, we don't care about that, but what actionable items that you've done that will influence change, especially change for generations?
Well, what do you all need to see? I want to know what you want to see. What kind of changes do you want to see? I mean, besides the obvious, but I mean, what does that change look like to you guys? Because you're the next generation.
Me personally, I want to see justice. I want examples set for people that harm us, that kill us. I want companies to give back to our communities. Okay, so like there's a lot of white-owned stores in our neighborhood. Give us a chance to make our own. And when it comes to that, it's also that we face challenges getting loans to even start the company. It's ways to hold us back without us physically seeing it. Take those away and watch us flourish. And that's how it's hard to say what all we can do because there's so much to be done. But I do believe we can start at the beginning and start somewhere. I believe that's easiest by giving justice by people that commit murder. Like literally, you're on camera committing murder, and it's still hard to get justice. We have to protest to get justice. Where when you look back a few months ago, there were people that were mad because they didn't want to wear masks. There are people showing up with guns because they didn't want to wear masks. I believe there's at Capitol Hall, and was it in Springfield? I don't remember correctly, but
It was they were in Michigan, the state of Michigan.
No,
Michigan.
Michigan, sorry. And they had assault rifles.
They weren't loaded though.
They still have them out, and that's just it. And I believe Michigan, I don't believe that Michigan can have weapons visible. I don't. But the point is that they didn't get no pushback. They didn't have police in hundreds pushing back, shooting rubber bullets at them, injuring them. People are losing their eyes. There are people still to this day being killed by the police. There are people being hanged, and they're saying that it's suicide. There are people sleeping in their own home being murdered. We're not safe anywhere. We're not safe in our home. We're not safe outside. We're most definitely not safe in these corporations. I want to see change.
Yeah, and I think you're referring to Breonna Taylor,
Yes.
who was that no-knock warrant. Those officers have not been charged with that incident.
There's going to be a press conference
They're still
today.
actually. You said what, Will?
I think there's going to be a press conference today about that. So
yeah.
Who knows?
You never know. Maybe,
yeah.
maybe. Rashawn, Will, were you saying something? Or Rashawn, were you saying something?
I didn't, but I can.
That's okay. That's okay. Listen, we're not trying to force you.
Speak your truth.
Yeah.
I guess I wanted to know too, since you all are the ones taking up the mantle, so to speak, right? Is there a possibility that as much momentum as we see right now, and from my perspective, momentum without any real substantive change yet? We've seen some reactions. We need to see some actions. Are you afraid that this moment will not be the movement and will fall short?
Absolutely. I hate for this to be one of those 3-month things and it just flies over everybody else. Everybody heads after that. Like, we hit November and it's like, oh, remember when we was all about Black Lives Matter movement? Yeah, good times. I hate for it to be one of those type of situations where we just get over it in the next few months and it's just kind of like one of those things of the past that just people just brushed off. I hate for it to become that and nothing actually was gained from it. I hate for it to be that type of situation.
Are you afraid that if things really don't move forward in a real way right now, that this is like the last ditch opportunity? This is it. Do you feel that way? Like it's got to be now?
Yeah, I feel like it's now or never in a way, because if nothing does change, then what? Do they get worse after? Like if they don't change, they get slightly better. Like what happens? So that makes me very afraid because I honestly don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the best thing that Black people can do is continue to unite and organize and mobilize. And right now I'm on a panel with 5 very intelligent Black people that are being active in our own ways. And now we're starting to come together. And another thing that we could talk about here is how we all represent different organizations in the communities that are working to develop change. And myself, I represent Free Spirit Media, which is an organization that was founded by a man who worked in a media company, and he felt as if he didn't see enough Black faces. So he started this entire organization, Jeff McCarter, to start putting people in those fields. So Free Spirit Media was my very first internship, where they put me in a place to work with their production arm, Free Spirit Pro, and they gave me tools and they gave me the supplies and the teachings to actually go out in the media field. So when I went and I applied for jobs, which they help with job placement, I had that experience. And they still have a Linden Library program where if I want to work on some type of short film of my own or anything, they will give me gear to work with for free. Those are the kind of opportunities that we need to start developing young Black people to grow up and get more into positions. And their mantra, what they go off of, is that they help to develop young teens and adults, their voice, their activism, their powers, and their talents to influence real change. So I would love if I can hear a little bit more about everyone's organizations and what they're doing in their own communities to spur change.
That was actually going to be my next question. So you got it. You want it.
I'm going to speak my truth, so I'm speaking my truth, Will.
And we appreciate it.
You got to speak your truth. If you can't do that, then listen, don't speak.
Why are we here?
Yeah.
For me, I'm a part of youth. I'm a part of youth guidance. And youth guidance, BAM, youth guidance is the program over it. But for BAM, becoming a man is teaching young Black men what it takes to become a man, what it takes to have integrity, what it takes to have respect for womanhood, what it takes to have positive anger expression, positive goal setting. And I believe all of those, what do we call them? I just forgot them just like that. I was going too hard. We call them goals. Sorry. But
you were getting excited.
Yeah.
I felt your energy.
But that's what we need. We need unity. We as Black people have to come together. And for BAM, youth guidance, it starts there. It starts for young Black men, young Black women, Black women coming together. And for the women, is working on womanhood. I don't know much about that. I can't speak on it for obvious reasons, but I can talk about BAM, and I can talk how much of a positive change it ended up investing in me. It was a long-term investment, but it paid out. I learned so many things. I see so many. I was able to experience so much, as into like even small things, being able to experience the opera, because not a lot of Black people seen operas. I was able to go to Washington, where I was supposed to meet President Obama, but he was in Cuba around the time. No love lost. But things like that we don't get to experience, and it all starts with unity. It all starts with development, and it all starts with education.
Okay, all right. Who's next? Tell us about what you're doing, who you're with, and what your plans are. How you plan to impact things.
Definitely. I am with Build, and I personally feel like we still cannot let the momentum die. So with Build, we still help support our youth. We come together as a team to go out there in our communities, help clean our communities. We help teach our youth about college, about education. We also help support our youth when it comes to scholarships, financially supporting them through their college education, and we also come with them through their journey. So it's not like a one-stop shop. We stick through from freshman year to of high school through college and beyond. We give counseling services to our youth, and it's a lot because we feel like, the youth is the next generation. If you build up your youth, in the correct manner and support them, then I feel like that is the biggest job ever. And as far as everything that's going on, having a peaceful protest, still supporting everything, even if, there's a moment where we feel like this may die, we still have to keep up the image, because, something like this has to keep the attention of officials, keep the attention of everyone. So if we have to use our platforms of social media, have to come together in our communities and build up our youth, that's what we have to do.
Very good. Very good.
So I'm from Global Girl Media, and that's an organization that trains young women to succeed within broadcast and journalism. So basically, they teach us that we have a voice. Not teach us that we have a voice. They let us know that it matters. So we do stories about police brutality, about minority, about, how it is to be poor, and, all different things that's going on within our community and within the world. I've actually done stories with women from South Africa who have gone through brutality and violence within, their community in South Africa. I was featured on the Huffington Post about my story that I did with my sister and my family on gun violence. I've done multiple stories where Global Girl Media has helped me build that platform into becoming the woman that I am today and being able to be so voicious, and unapologetic in a way. So that's what Global Girl Media does, and I absolutely love it from day one.
So good to hear you all talk about your organizations and the work that you all are doing. I'm just so proud of you. And it's inspiring just to listen to your stories. And we were talking about the movement and what you all are doing to try to push the movement forward. Does that include voting? You know, young people traditionally do not show up to vote. I know the mayor of Atlanta, when people were out looting on the streets, she said, "This is not protest, this is chaos. Go home and vote in November." How important is voting?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that. So first, I want to just wrap up that last point and just show that we are working. I've seen that question come across my Twitter feed a lot of times, and it's like, well, this many people were just killed, and what are you doing? Why are you out there? It's like, we're working, we're doing things, but there's only so much that each individual person can do. And now we're looking towards those in power, those that are making the decisions and making the laws to match our energy and have that momentum where they're helping us make the change. But voting is extremely important. Filling out your census is extremely important. Both of those are avenues that, you know, everyone should be helping to promote. Telling your parents, like, hey, fill out your census, go vote, getting people registered to vote. But if we truly want a voice and we want people that represent us, we need to vote them in. We need to get ourselves counted so we can get the resources in our community. So if you don't take away anything else from this entire discussion, vote, fill out your census, and stop being racist.
That's true. I'm surprised that I don't see. I was interested that even some of with the peaceful, obviously, demonstrations and protests, that I don't see more census and voter registration going on. As a matter of fact, I know that tomorrow they've got a protest in Inglewood where there'll be the census as part of that driving force, because obviously that's resources directed to particular neighborhoods and to people. And obviously that's part of what the issue is affordable housing. It's healthcare. So this pandemic, we've seen it, right? Some of the misinformation and how the disparity and how communities of color have been hit by this. So those are the kinds of things that you're very right. I would be interested to add this to what Will asked you. What can we do, like people like Will, like me, people in that generation? I don't know, I'm in Will's generation. I'd like to be a little younger, I guess maybe. But I'm just going.
You're in my generation in my head.
There you go. Thank you. Honorary generation. What can we do to help you? Because sometimes I feel like we may have dropped the ball a little. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Continue with amplifying, right? Like, you guys get seats where you can go to press conferences and you can talk to those in power and hold them accountable. Like, all right, these young people said this, or you ask a question and they don't give a sufficient answer. You guys know when they're just giving us the runaround. So continue to amplify those. Or maybe if there's a way that you can start bringing young people with you to some of these press conferences or opportunities, or organizing meetings. So using your power and your connection with our energy to bring us together and help us continue discussion and further dialogue. And Will has an introduction to do for us.
Yeah, my fiance is behind me. She's preparing for a presentation. It starts at 3 o'clock. So we only have one home studio. So yeah, way by. Her name's Monica.
Yes. Monica's working hard back there. I see that. Yeah, I sent my children and my mother shopping, so they'll be occupied for a while. You know, but yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, that's good to know. I mean, I just think it's so much. I think what I love about you all is your message, and not just your message, your truth, but also how you are living the cohesiveness. And that's what I hear from all of you all, is that there has to be cohesion, you know. Talk to me a little bit about, or talk about the trauma, because sometimes I think the trauma that we absorb as people of color sometimes keeps us from that true cohesion, because we're angry, we're self-medicating, there are mental health issues, and that anger that Jara, you referred to, and everybody, a couple others did too. We manage it, but sometimes it's unmanageable. Talk a little bit about that. Have someone talk about that. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say.
I personally feel like we don't have the proper resources. You know, I feel like there's a bunch of anger, you know, frustration, and honestly, an uncontrolledness of our emotions when it comes to the Black community, African Americans. We don't have a lot of counseling in our neighborhoods. We don't have a lot of areas where we can go and talk to a lot of people about how do I deal with this? This is going on. And then you see and hear about things that's being done to us, makes it even worse. So it's really hard. It's very hard, but I feel like if we had the proper resources, that would do a lot of aid. That would help a lot, a lot.
Are you talking about the stigma? I mean, because I know in the African American community, there's a stigma to mental health. But are you talking about, you saying done to us? What do you mean?
When you see the police brutality, sometimes it happens
okay.
right there in front of you, or it happens to you. And it's like, okay, how do I manage this? Because you have so much emotions going on inside of you at one point, and it's hard to control. So, where do we go to get the help? What resources do we have? So I feel like if we had the proper guidance, the proper resource, the proper teachings, that probably would help a lot.
Okay.
Because, we're just taught, oh, just deal with it. You'll get over it.
Right.
You're fine.
Right. You just push it down. Push it down.
That's not healthy. That's not okay. So I just feel like proper guidance, help, and resource.
So we're running out of time.
Yeah.
So before we leave, I just want to get your thoughts about this conversation. What do we do now? Just some final reflections.
I just want to speak to my people for a second, my Black activists and organizers out there. What I really want folks to do is, if you know that you have the ear of people in power, use it responsibly. There are so many people that I see on social media that are trying to just make some type of controversial statement or call someone out for some likes and retweets, or you're going to a protest to rile people up, when you know for a fact that you can make a phone call to the person in power and get that situation dealt with. If you're at a protest and a rally and you know who's in charge, connect the people from the correct departments with the organizers. There are a lot of people that are proclaiming themselves to represent the Black community, and they're in the rooms and they're in the spaces, but they're not doing a proper service to us. So make sure that you're using it wisely, using it properly. You're holding those people accountable, and you're not worried about your personal relationship. You're worried more about the entire community. If not, train someone else, step out of the way, and keep people going that really care about this and that are unapologetic about it. There's so many young people that are really outspoken, and they're going out and they're calling people out, but they're pushed to the side because you think they're a problem. They're not a problem. Bring them in, put them on your youth council, give them a seat at the table, and your worst critics are the ones that you should be looking to for their type of approval, because they're going to keep it 100 with you. Period.
Mic drop.
I believe that this conversation was very much needed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my internet just went out. Did you say something, Evelyn?
No, go ahead. You were saying you think it's very much needed.
Yes, this conversation was very much needed. All four of us, including Evelyn and Will, we were all able to share in today and give some type of perspective on the change that needs to come. And so imagine imagine the other African American men and women have to say. We are young, and so we need the support of the older generation to let us know, like, okay, take this route, reach out to this alderman, reach out to that, do something. Similar to what Rashawn was saying. We just need the support. This conversation was needed. We need to have it with more people. We need to have it with other races to let them know this is how we feel, this is what we think, and this is what needs to happen.
Yep. Keep connecting with us. This is my shameless plug. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Vashawn_photo. I want to hear from you. Let's collaborate. All right, I'm done. We have 1 minute.
Gabrielle and Jari, let's hear from
hurry
you.
up, get it on in, get it in.
Yeah, I love this conversation. I wish it didn't have to end, because it was so, it was like a release. It was like our mini therapy session of everything we had to let out. But I do want to say, Black people, don't stop. Keep going. Yes. Keep going and keep going and keep going. Even if we got to unite by pain and anger, keep going. Don't stop. Don't stop.
Okay.
Yes, I agree. Please do not let this die. Please do not let our voices fade away. We have to keep going. Definitely, I agree. Yeah. This is very much needed. Thank you.
I'm excited just that I get to be a part of it and then hear what you all have to say. because it just makes me feel, you don't know. It's like you guys are hugging me. I'm loving this. I'm loving it. Because when you're out there fighting, you know what? When you're out there doing it, you give me purpose.
Yeah.
You guys gave me purpose today, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.